All right, everyone, welcome to another edition of Thrivecast. My name is DJ Eshelman. Great to be here with you yet again on another day. Always good to have another day. It's dark outside, otherwise I'd show you the wonderful weather we finally have here in Franklin, Tennessee, where it is nice and warm, 73 degrees. Can you believe it? Snow is melting. Love it. So it's great to be with here today. Let's bring on my co-host, Jeff Pitsch.
I got to get my outdoor cam to show you all the snow that we have. Come on, man. It was 43 today. Shorts and t-shirts. I mean, that's what it is in Michigan.
That's right. That's what we do. that's how we do. So. No, it is all good. Got a great show for you here today. So Rick is kind of we say we call this the OG because Rick's been around as long as either of us, really, if not longer than I have, as far as the Citrix community. So we're going to dive into his relationship and with Citrix and all the things there. And so just a little intro to this guy. So he is a lot of people like us, like quasi OG people, and know the installation and tuning tips for Citrix MetaFrame, which was a kind of a precursor to a lot of the consulting stuff that was written, and then ultimately the book Be a Citrix Hero that I wrote. And so this is all kind of a stream of things that all came to that. And then,
well, and when you look at all of the optimization tools and things like that, Rick had the optimization spreadsheet. It is what it was at a time when, I mean, really none of us understood, kind of exactly what was going on. And he was able to take the time, the effort, not only for tuning Windows as terminal services, but there was Office as well and how to get that to run better. Lots of good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff. So he's currently working as a solutions architect on the Cloud Innovations Partnership team at Citrix, doing a lot with Google and things like that. So if you have any technical questions about that, do not ask them here. We don't want to hear it. But we are going to talk a lot about Rick's career and his life. So let's bring on Rick Dehlinger. Welcome, sir.
Hey, what's up, fellas? Hi.
Look at this newfangled technology.
I'm so excited. It's a camera. We're online. How's it going, fellas?
It is going
so good.
Well, it gets better all the time.
Amen to that.
Absolutely. So good to have you with us, and hopefully some people are looks like we've got some people joining us live today, some on YouTube, one on Facebook so far. So we got a few people out there, so go ahead and let us know if you've got any questions or you just want to heckle. That's perfectly fine as well. We accept the heckling. We're about 75% on putting comments up on the screen. It might be higher than that, actually.
If you want to berate him for past behavior, we understand that too. It's just part, what happens.
Yeah, I probably have. It would be unwarranted, most likely.
Probably not, but we'll let it slide. But we do appreciate you being on. So actually, let's dive right into this. So, where were you born? Where are you from? That sort of thing.
I'm an Oregon boy, believe it or not.
Okay.
Yeah, one of those. Born in Southern Oregon, lived down there for, I don't know, till third grade. Moved up to Eastern Washington, did high school. Actually went to college up while I was in Eastern Washington at Washington State.
Okay.
Yeah, believe it or not. Not that I've set foot back on campus since I left or anything, but hey, I'm a Coug. Go Cougs.
Right on.
Yes, I've then hung out, lived up in the Northwest, lived in Seattle for a little while, Portland area for a while. Spent about 15 years in NorCal in the Sacramento area. And for the last, coming up on 2 years now, actually, I've been in this little tiny town up in the mountains down in Southern California, this little town called Big Bear Lake. It's a little resort town up at almost 7,000 feet. And damn fine place to weather a pandemic, let me tell you.
I'll see the pictures you were showing me the other day. It's just, it's absolutely gorgeous. Great place.
Man, being outside and being in the mountains keeps me sane. So yeah, hey, I'm sane today because I live in the mountains and I can get outdoors. So yeah, it's kind of a short version. I've always been a West Coast boy. Never lived anywhere outside of Oregon, Washington, California.
I'm not sure I understand.
Shut up, Siri. I'm not talking to you. Sorry, I didn't turn my watch off. I turned everything off.
Yeah, I realized a certain device is still online over there. I just realized that myself.
Oops.
It happens every now and then. She'll pop in and want to be part of the conversation. We're like, nope, we ain't talking to you.
Go.
It's all good. So was computers, IT, that sort of thing always an interest growing up, or was this was it some other kind of journey?
You know what? So there weren't so much computers per se when I was growing up. Dare I date myself? Actually, didn't really get into computers until I was away at college. Believe it or not,
Okay.
it was one random comment from my father that kind of initiated my whole interest in computers. He was like, "Hey, we might have a little bit of extra cash left over this month. You know, you've been wanting a computer. Maybe we'll have enough money to go out and buy one. So why don't you go out and do a little research and figure it out?" So I did, and I dove in and went and figured my shit out. Pardon my French, and bought my first computer. Built my first computer, I should say.
Yeah.
And that was the point really where I learned that I had an aptitude for technology. And yeah, it wasn't much past that when I actually just first started getting paid for consulting, my ability to bridge that gap between business and technology.
Gotcha. So was your degree in like computer science or something like that? Or was it something?
No, had nothing to do with computers. Closest thing I had to computer science training in college was the mandatory business technology track, where I wrote. Let's see, the most interesting thing I did there was wrote a tic-tac-toe game in GW Basic.
Ooh, GW Basic.
Yeah. But
did you have the fun of working with Pascal while you were there too, or?
No.
Oh.
Fortunately. Fortunately. So, no, actually, all my background has been business related. It was just I found that I had an aptitude for technology and an interest in it. I got that curiosity and ability to learn and pick stuff apart and see how all the pieces come together. And then as soon as I learned that people would pay me for what I know about technology and what I know about business and doing technology stuff for business, I was like, I think we have a home here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's always nice when people start paying you for stuff. It changes everything.
It was cool. It allowed me to leave college without owing any money, which was an absolute blessing.
Yeah.
Applause for that.
Yeah. Kudos to that. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So what got you? So obviously, there's things like that. But what got you into kind of the end user computing space that we now call it? What was that progression?
You know what? I can boil it down to one day and one event that set my whole direction. So I found myself skipping a bunch of stuff in the middle between leaving college and actually starting my first quote unquote real job. Was working for actually ended up being a Citrix reseller, one of the first couple of Citrix resellers in the Northwest. There was Moose Logic and there was First Choice Computer Services. So I was working for them, brought on as a sales guy, and the I'd had one customer that essentially had just been throwing me orders. I had no idea what I was ordering, but so had sold him some WinView, because he told me that he wanted it, and I looked it up, and I put it in the ordering system. Yep. Good. Yeah, but one day, it was prior to the initial release of WinFrame. He came into my little cubicle one day, and we were all friggin' stoked because we had just gotten our 56K internet connection. Like, wow, we got internet at the office. This is so rad. So he came wandering into my cubicle one day with a disk, and he's like, "Move it," pushed me away from my computer. Whoa, okay, what? Popped the disk in, ran the early iteration of the Citrix Workspace app. Rewind, remote application manager, maybe. I don't know. It was a while back. Anyway, fired up the client, pointed it towards an address, hit go, boom, and up popped a friggin' Windows system on the other side of town over the internet. And it just friggin' blew my mind. And that really was my whole start with EUC. As soon as I saw how, at that point in those days, it was really more of a remote access solution is what people were buying it for. Mm-hmm. As soon as I saw the possibilities of it, I was absolutely fascinated. And, pretty soon that turned into me going from being a salesperson to being the Microsoft networking guy on staff, to then ultimately running our professional services team there, being the Citrix guy, doing and delivering and managing. And then one day, actually, I still remember this, like, oh my God, so clear. Like the day that changed my life, my family had this little cabin down in Southern Oregon, and I was sitting out on the end of the dock, and I got a phone call from this guy named Arlo Paraños. Arlo at the time was our Citrix SE. Like he was my go-to inroad into Citrix. He called me. He's like, "Hey man, I'm breaking all the friggin' rules by calling you right now." He's like, "But hey, we've got an opportunity here. What would you think about coming and joining Citrix?" At that point in time, I was working for a small company in a relatively small town. I was the Citrix guy, but it was pretty small pond, so to speak. And the opportunity to go work with the best and the brightest Citrix engineers in the world was just too much for me to pass up. So I quit my job, so to speak, relocated from Bend, Oregon, which is still, you can see Mount Bachelor picture in the background there. Favorite mountain in the world. Found myself relocating to Portland, Oregon as I started raising a family and being the field guy, all things Citrix. That was it. That was the kicker.
What year was that you?
When I actually started working for Citrix proper? Let's see. My first Citrix event was Thinnergy 97 or 98. I think it was the tail end of 98 when I accepted the job. Yeah. So tail end of 98.
Synergy, man, there.
It was. Yeah. That's when I met Steve Greenberg. Stevie, man, Stevie became one of my best friends and confidants, and even a mentor in the world of business ownership. Stevie and I met at that first Thinnergy. Still got the V-neck T-shirt to prove it.
Nice.
That predates me, man. That's I was still serving up 56K modem connections at that point.
Man.
You hear that a lot, I think, from us older people. When you first saw whether it was WinFrame or MetaFrame or just straight up terminal services, and when it clicked, like what exactly was happening and how it was like. I mean, because I remember that feeling too, like whoa, and I always used to say, it's like MetaFrame or not MetaFrame. It's like a mainframe connection for Windows. And I said, but then explain that, but you're actually getting a desktop and it acts just like your local desktop and all this stuff, but it was just that mind-blowing experience about, really, Windows can do this? Or somebody hacked Windows to do this? That's awesome. Because at the time, that was a Citrix special version of Windows.
It was indeed. Yeah.
And I had to wait for service packs to be released from Citrix. It was an interesting time. It was very interesting.
Get those
I love this. A lot of firsts for me in those days, though.
Yeah.
Well, there was a lot of firsts in general. I mean, you think about it, that was the era where so many things were changing. That's when computing was starting to come in its own to begin with. And people were starting to realize that there was a lot more than just, spreadsheets and games on these things.
Yeah. And when you look back, early to late 90s. Yeah. I mean, it's an immense amount of change. Early 90s, people had computers, but networks were give or take, depending on the business, right? And then as it starts going up, because I was doing new cabling for companies that had built a new building 6 months before it got finished, but they didn't run cabling through the system and things like that. It just, and you look how it started and where it ended, like year 2000, that's an immense amount of change. And it grew from infancy, adolescence. I'll give it adolescence around the 2000 time frame. But
okay, so I take my time frame back. It was 99 when I went to Citrix, because one of the things that I remember we had done, we were building a year 2000 preparation practice at First Choice prior to my departure. So I saw us get to take on the first couple of customers with that, and I was like, later.
Yeah. Y2K was no fun.
Actually, it ended up being fine. And, again, I know we've talked about this before, but, all the hard work that went into mitigating that issue really paid off. I was one of those guys that was in the data center till about 3 a.m., making sure systems are working, all that good stuff. We had all hands on deck, and, no major issues whatsoever.
Yeah.
The nukes didn't go flying. I thought that was a good thing.
That was definitely the right direction.
Yeah, I knew if certain ships just happened to, ram into each other or, into the pier, that I might not have, shown up to work the next day. But
there's all for a lot of us to not show up to work the next day. And then it was just a fizzle, and that was totally fine too.
Well, I was actually, believe it or not, this is kind of the weird thing about that. I was actually in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So yeah, it was a little random. Yeah. There was a company in Cedar Rapids, Iowa running all these ocean vessels all over the world. Yeah, a little strange.
Okay. So now I'm tracking with the whole ships running ashore comment you made earlier. I'm a little slow.
It's also why Steve Greenberg was asking me the other night about Inmarsat and things like that, because that goes way back to those days, and just it's unfortunate what I know about just how much you can do with a very slow connection over a satellite.
Satellite. I got my first satellite communication device here a month or so ago.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Get your
Does
prepping
it start
on?
with an S?
Yeah.
No, actually, it was a little Garmin InReach device.
Oh, okay.
I've been getting into backcountry, snowboarding, mountain biking, hiking, riding an adventure bike, and finding myself riding alone because I live alone, and finding friends in a new town in the middle of a pandemic is a little bit challenging.
Yeah, there's that. So.
Yes, it is. But yeah, just from the safety standpoint,
Yeah.
I was spending so much time in the backwoods where this thing had no reception. It's like, yeah, okay, I should probably be a little more safer. So, I just picked up that little InReach. So, hey, at least I got an SOS. I have a lifeline now.
Does Will it? Yeah, I see. This is where we get off topic now because I have to ask: if something happened, like, does it somehow detect it? Like the Apple Watch. You mentioned an Apple Watch earlier. It will detect a fall and then alert. It doesn't. It's not. There's nothing like that. So if you got eaten by a bear, there's nothing sent. Or do you have somebody that can track where you are?
So you can so no, there is no automatic button like the Apple Watch, which the only time mine's ever gone off is when it's not supposed to. There's no button like that. You can put it into a tracking mode where it's sending location links every 10 minutes, I think, up to a website. You get a tracking website, your share site, where people can go to the site, they can see where you're at live while you're tracking, they can send and receive messages back and forth from the device. But yeah, you still have to.
Where the bear is after you're eating, you can see where the bear is and track the bear. Yeah.
Oh God!
This is where he got eaten. Then he got dragged over here.
Yeah.
All right. For fear of going down a whole nother rabbit hole, I'll give you the short version of this. Speaking of bears, there's a little spot. Actually, I showed Jeff when we caught up last week. I showed him a picture of this spot that I've been snowshoeing. I'd snowshoe up, snowboard down. I was coming down the other day after a reasonably fresh dump of snow. Just got my line cruising along, saw some motion over my shoulder, glanced over, looked again. Not one, not two. Six freaking bears, bonding, running full speed down the hill after each other.
Wow.
Not after Rick, thank God.
Yeah.
Thankfully, they were not running after me. No. Actually, it was not that threatening. They didn't know I was there, and they didn't give a rip.
No,
It was like it was a gang war. Like I walked into a gang. There were two brown ones that seemed to be getting picked on, and the four black ones. And one fell down, and they kind of tackled them and all rolled. And anyway, since then, I've actually been scouting around that area, trying to figure out where the bear zone is, because the whole mountainside, I'm all over between hiking, snowboarding, snowshoeing, riding my mountain bike. Like this entire mountainside, I'm like totally mapping out and getting to know. So I'm like, okay, bear zone. I will avoid that part.
Right.
Probably a smart move.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a little hesitant to tell my family about some of those stories. Although,
there's only so many things you can tell people that don't have enough context to understand too. I mean, that's a challenge. So
yeah.
So as far as it goes at Citrix, so what kind of jobs, what kind of progression have you had with Citrix? I'll ask that one first. I have another question later, but I'm just kind of curious what the progression of duties has been at Citrix, because people want to know that sort of stuff. Yeah,
for sure. So I'm actually back at Citrix now. This is my second round at Citrix.
Okay, that was my second question, but we'll okay.
There you go. We're buying you back some time today. Glad to be of service. So my first time at Citrix, it was the very, very not very, very, very early days. I think I was employee 868 was my ID number. I came on as we'd call us systems engineers at the time. And I was basically one of two people on the ground in the Northwest, covering Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and probably some other stuff around there too. So there was me as the technical guy, and then there was a buddy of mine that I'd gotten into Citrix eventually by the name of Julian Wilcoxon. That was the sales guy. So at that point in time, we were doing everything. We were doing all the local marketing events. We were working with partners and helping build, acting like a modern day partner account manager.
Yeah.
Working with enterprise accounts. I spent, over the first 3 years there, I probably spent 50-60% of my time at Boeing. And likes of Nike, Starbucks, the the typical Northwest crew. So it was a little bit of just about everything. And Citrix wasn't so big at that point in time. We didn't have that many people. You were a guy out in the field that had a Citrix business card, so you did pretty much anything and everything that needed. So that was a good time. I did that up through 2005. 05, left, did a short stint at Microsoft. Cool company, very wrong job. Then there was an 11-year gap there in the middle before I came back to Citrix. And in that gap, I started, I guess, what would have been my second and third consulting businesses. Built them, sold them, did some time in the enterprise storage space, worked for Atlantis. Got to work with the likes of Andy Wood and Jim Moyle and Mike Nelson.
That's why I was confused for the record. Yeah.
What's that?
That's why I was confused for the record. I was like, oh, wait a minute.
Wait, what? What's he talking about?
Yeah, that's like
See, there was a section of that time in between my first stint at Citrix and my second stint at Citrix. You know, I stepped out, chased my dream of starting my own business. You know, it was something that I had been driven to do ever since I was in college. I studied international business and entrepreneurship. Okay. So it's like I had to do something with that education, I guess.
Absolutely.
So I went down the road of, you know, the self-flagellation and beating yourself, cutting yourself, of building and running your own business. Did that for a few years. Sold them, took on executive leadership roles, typically technical related.
Yeah.
Atlantis being probably the broadest one, where I was responsible for services from end-to-end pre-sales, post-sales consulting, and also support services. And yeah, so then I left Atlantis. Actually, I got fired from Atlantis. First and only job I've ever lost. Chetan Venkatesh had to take me into the conference room one day and say, sorry, man, I got to let you go. That was part of the game in an executive type of a role. Still fantastic experience. Was actually unemployed for about 6 months while I figured out what the hell I was going to do, what I wanted to do. Let's see. I left Atlantis on a Thursday. Monday, I received a phone call about the job at Citrix that I ultimately took 6 months later.
Okay.
But it took me 6 months to decide if I wanted to go back to Citrix or not. And the thing that was my hang-up was the CTP program. So that the community and being part of the community for so long. And, you know, seeing it from the early days when we were, you know, emailing back and forth on the thin list, you know, all that kind of crap. My time early on at Citrix, when the whole install and tuning tips movement happened. When I left Microsoft, left Citrix first time, left Microsoft. I was actually, along with Jeff and Brian and Sean Bass and Ron and a whole other cast, 8, 10 of us?
Yeah, Rick Mack was in there. And
Young.
Yep. I still can't pronounce his name right, but we all know who we're talking about.
Jerome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I became so involved in, and to be honest with you, a little bit dependent upon the Citrix community. You know, I love being a part of it. Love presenting. Did all but 2 Bri forums over the years, and that was still like my favorite event ever. I love that friggin' event. Such a killer community, killer group, killer opportunities to share your knowledge. I don't know. Then the squirrel ran by the stream and I totally got sidetracked.
There's a bear outside the window, right?
Squirrel. Yeah, a bear chasing a squirrel, that would be epic. So yeah, so ultimately, what won out? What caused you to take the leap back to Citrix?
That's a fantastic question, because I certainly caused myself a lot of pain. I mean, 6 months unemployed, with 3 kids and a ranch and horses and animals and all that shit, living in California it was pain. I beat myself up pretty good in that 6 months. But the thing that ultimately kind of the place that I came to where I was okay taking a job back at Citrix, there were 2 realizations that happened. One realization was that all the friendships and the relationships that I've made along the way, that those weren't going to go away. They may change, they may alter. I may not get a chance to see all my friends and contribute to the community in the same way that I have been. But those are connections. Those are our friendships that are going to be there forever. So, okay, that was my first big roadblock, mental roadblock to get over. Then the second one was, like, I love sharing knowledge, and I love contributing. I love contributing to other people's success. Like I still, in fact, I did a Tech Zone Live event that aired last week with Citrix, and somebody popped on there and shared a comment, was like, "Hey, Rick D, 20 years ago, your document started my entire career. Thanks again." Those things coming up that made it all so worth it. But that second realization was that, okay, I can still have an impact on the community, not being in the program. My role, and the role that I took at Citrix, was kind of a behind the scenes, kind of longer reaching biz devy sort of a role. Initially, the team was called Strategic Alliances. Mm-hmm. But I realized that I could still have an impact on the community. It would be different. It would take a different form. But I could still contribute to other people's successes. I could still have an impact, still interact with the community, just differently and from the inside. So it really sucked having to give up my CTP. I so love that program, seeing it had blood, sweat, and tears, and how it built and evolved over, the 10 years of time. Yeah. So while it was kind of kicking and screaming that I let go of that, I stepped into a whole new world that was like a major transition, both a life kind of a transition, as well as obviously a career transition. And now I find myself here 4.5 years later, still with Citrix. I'm not living in NorCal anymore. I'm not married anymore. My kids are moved out. One's in UCLA. The other one's in the Air Force back in Dover. Nice. I'm working on jets. It's been a crazy ride. It's been a really crazy ride. Yeah. But I tell you, the combination of the community and the friendships that I've made over the years, and actually being back at Citrix, being in an individual contributor role versus like an executive leadership kind of a role, has been an absolute blessing. I mean, the community's been insanely supportive. My last 4 years, 5 years-ish of personal life have been relatively tumultuous and change-filled. So having the community there, and Citrix as an employer has been absolutely fantastic and supportive of me and my life and everything that's come up. It's been a good transition. That's the upside. The downside is the shift. Man, I had to turn a lot of attention that I used to put to the community. Oh, yeah. I had to turn towards facing problems in the real world, in my real life, that quite frankly, I've been ignoring for a long time. I'll just go to work. I'll just go to work. I'll do my thing. I'll stick my head in the sand. I'll pretend that alcoholism in my household is not a thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, I tell you, man, these days I'm feeling absolutely blessed to be alive, have a job, have my friendships, have a fantastic woman I'm sharing a lot of my life with that lives down in town. And I'm getting, I went mountain biking for my afternoon activity, my exercise this afternoon. I jumped on my damn mountain bike. I rode halfway around the lake, took a couple of pictures of this cool observatory on the other side that I got right up next to, rode my ass back, jumped in a conference call on the way back, and I'm back here. So, all told, it's been good.
Something that I've always, it's always surrounded me with not just Citrix employees, but the people that work around the technology. And I don't know if it's just a cultural thing. That might be a next week conversation actually, but there's always been this like attitude, like, no, it's okay to live your life. Work hard, play hard, yeah, but friggin' live your life. It's just like, it's okay to take a sunny afternoon and go enjoy it, and then come back and finish what you got to do today. It's not like you have to go on vacation all the time. There's little siestas or whatever just to enjoy life. It was unusual for the culture at the time. I think that's hopefully starting to get more accepted. I haven't really poked my head out long enough to find out, but
yeah, it totally is. So yeah, the work hard, play hard. I know you got Mark coming up next week, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that was Mark. He was the core of that, at least from my perspective. And I've been around it a hell of a lot over the last 20 years. But yeah, I would say, Citrix, actually going back to my first stint, my first 5.5, 6 years at Citrix, has always been insanely supportive as an employer. Had a situation with my stepson where all his meds and everything were just kind of going nuts. He's on the autistic spectrum, and he was just off the freaking chain. Like, one day tried to jump out of the car going down the freeway, and has a 6-year-old kid. So I ended up having to drop out of work and go focus on that for about 3 months. And Citrix was just like, go, forget it, drop your shit, take care of your family, let us know when you're done.
Yep.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, it's super important to remember, and it's good to set examples. I mean, and I think there's a lot of that going on now where other companies are starting to realize, oh gosh, if we only do work, people stop wanting to work for us. If our only focus is making, if our only focus is making money, obviously every company exists to make money and that's important, but it's what you do with that success that really matters. And so if it's just, okay, yeah, you're just here to work and we'll see you, we'll have a little party on Friday, we'll have a little happy hour, and that's the extent of their culture. That's a tragedy, especially in today's world where we've proven that, yeah, people can work from home and still be effective, if not more effective. So yeah.
And that's really, the American culture. I mean, you look back through the years, the decades, America has always been like that, right? I mean, it's always been business first, personal second. No matter who you are, we've got to be number one. We can never stop working. We got to get all this stuff out. And, and I think obviously you see those differences when you go over to, Europe and things like that. But
and they actually take stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, even I already forgot the name, but like, child gets born, fathers get paid time off too. I mean, but it's starting to come over. And I know as Americans, we have a very resistant, we can't learn anything from anyone because we have the best of everything already. I'll let that go. But that's been a lot of the problem is America as a whole is truly conservative, not politically, but I mean, afraid of change in those types of things. I mean, what was it, the early 80s? late 70s, we tried to convert to the metric system, and it was just insane that, people wow, we're Americans, we do the, so you have these examples, and we are coming around. I'm really, I think it's the newer companies, the tech companies that are really pushing the envelope on that for the most part. But when you look at the big traditional companies, they're still very much all work, no play.
You know what, man? It's like every day I'm amazed at how different, and I become really aware of how different the world is today than the world that we grew up in.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even amongst, one generation, I didn't gather how far behind generationally you were, DJ, but even one generation difference is such a massive difference. And raising kids and seeing the world that they're growing up in today, like I've been constantly finding myself having to take pause as, I'm putting on the dad hat, as I know the dad hat from my father raising me, where, I just want to share advice and tell my kids how things should be done. That hat. Putting that on, I'm constantly, or headband, neither of my kids live with me anymore. Had to pause and think, okay, this is what I was taught. Is this still even valid today? Because the world is so freaking different. And, in some regards, I feel like I'm useless to my kids. Like, what advice can I provide you? This world, it's freaking bizarre. I have no idea what's going on in this crazy.
The best piece of advice is don't put anything on the internet you don't want people to see. Once it's up there, it's there forever. That's about all I can think of nowadays is just don't be stupid.
Sorry, I was going to make a comment about bad mouthing your country on YouTube, but I'll digress.
I call it like it is. I'll stick by it.
Yeah, I got some here. There's a
Hey, it's the truth. I'm sorry. It is the truth. So Rick, I want to. Oh, sorry, DJ.
I was just saying. Let's see if this fits on the screen. I'm actually kind of curious about this. Another friend from from your neck of the woods in California, as it turns out. But so for country folk here, let me see if I can. Work from home has been a slow transition in the country as well. Most were pretty forced to do this the past year. Do you feel that transition to work from home has been successful in most companies? The prominent company that I know has said that they have seen less motivation, initiative, and creativity from employees.
So
maybe
sorry, Rick, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, maybe it's a microcosm of the world as I see it, because I'm not frontline. I'm not spending all my time in front of customers. That's still a pretty big element of what I do. But when I do interact with a customer, I'm usually parachuted in as an SME. So I've got a brief window that I see, interact and work with them deeply, and then I'm back out of there again. But for the most part, from what I've seen, like my own experience in interacting with Google as my primary partner these days, with my coworkers, and even the little snippets that I've seen of probably at least 30 different customers since the pandemic stuff has started. And I actually feel like we're adapting pretty darn well. But as Jeff, you had made the point earlier that, in the US, that it's kind of the tech sector that's leading a little bit of that whole adoption. It's cool.
Well, and with what we do, you, me, DJ, collectively, EUC, we're a little biased towards what we see, or, there's that.
Exactly.
That's what we see is people working from home, and that's what we do. We enable people working from home. So I think it's hard to say yes, no, maybe, the best answers are maybe depends. My answer to that is is looking back at my transition from working either, on the road, professional services, or working in an office. The transition to work from home is not an easy one, even when you're prepared for it. You're going to be working from home. You're going to need this, this, and this. There is a transition period, right? Where you may be working like 10 hours one day, and then tomorrow you kind of like, so you take the whole day off and play hooky and stuff like that. My opinion is it is a long transition period. Now, those people last year that, literally overnight were told, don't come in, you're going to be remote for a while.
Jarring.
They're not prepared. The company's not prepared. You don't even have it in your head the day before that I'm going to be working from home tomorrow. So for them, the transition is even harder. How many people have we seen? You've been on video calls and, Rick, you live alone. So, you've got a nice background there. You don't have to worry about kids running through, screaming and stuff. But people working, their desk was a TV table, TV tray thing, things like that. They don't have an office. Some of them didn't even have like a dining room table to sit at, depending where they are, like, small apartment in New York or something. So it's very hard. It's very hard. And the businesses have had to change philosophically as well. And that's a difficult thing for even, for a business, because it's not just how we do things, processes and procedures. It's also cultural. So I think what we're going to see, so my final statement on this, I think what we're going to see is we're going to see ups, we're going to see downs for a lot of companies, especially those that this was completely new. But I think in the end, in the end, it's going to be a hybrid one way or the other. But I think we're going to see a lot. I think the more people working from home is what we're going to be seeing. It's not going to be the niche that, it was, the select few get to work from home or something. So it's going to take time, because there's so many pieces and parts that need to be addressed. It's not just the people working from home. And the last thing I do want to say, I lied the first time I said the last thing, but how are they measuring motivation, initiative, and creativity?
Right.
Were they measuring it before the pandemic hit? Or is it just, I've got a gut feeling that I'm not, so there's that as well.
That's, I think, so I've admittedly had probably amongst the easiest of transitions here, right?
Exactly.
Yes. Except for the 2 cats that I inherited from my daughter when she moved into college. And I've been all but remote since I took my first job at Citrix, in '99. So I've been doing this for pretty much constantly for over 20 years. So the transition itself, I'd say, has been pretty easy for me. In some regards, I think one of the big silver linings that's going to come out of this, humans in general, I firmly believe are change averse. You start talking about, especially forcing people to change, they get all twitchy and freaky. Yeah. So I think that one of the things that will come out of this is some positive. We were thrown into this pandemic, and there wasn't any choice, really, any options, and we were all forced to just deal with whatever the hell was coming, because it was all new. We'd never been here before. But I think that forced change, and the fact that it's hung on for upwards of a year now, I think the silver lining is coming out of this. I think we're going to see a lot of positive impacts. People really rethinking what's important in their life. Employers really thinking about what's important is profit hands down the most important thing at all costs? Or, do you really want to actually care for your employees?
Yeah, that's true.
But so while it's been rough in many regards, and it's admittedly been a heck of a lot rougher on a lot of other people, I think we're going to come out of this in better shape. The world's going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
The way it looks, the things that we do, how we do them are going to be different. But I think we're going to come out and the world's going to be a better place once it's all said and done. Knock on wood.
I think so.
Whatever. I'm holding on to
And
that
as
shit.
people find that work-life balance while at home, when you find that balance, it's it's like a light bulb going off. It's like the first time you saw Citrix working and Windows remoting, and but it really is. Once you find that balance, it becomes so much better. I mean, when I started working from home a decade ago, my 3 boys, I was able to spend more time, go to sporting events, go to school events, things like that. That if I had been stuck in an office, probably never would have happened, or not nearly as much. But sometimes, it does take some time to find the balance that you feel comfortable, because these are people that are coming from, 9 to 5 jobs, right? Where you're in an office, you're just working. That's what you do when you're in the office. When you're at home, that's not necessary. You're typically not having to clock in from 9 to 5. So you can take the mountain bike breaks and things like that. But people aren't used to that. And so, it's just a lot of things that are very different. And it's a balance thing, and they need to find it. There's no way anyone can dictate, this is the balance, this is how it, you know what I mean? They need to find it themselves.
So I think also review, I'll put it up on the screen here. This is the episode we did with George way back in June, way back when we were younger. thrive-it.com/TC006, episode 06. That'll talk a lot about that, but just to get into some of the other questions here. So any advice for managers who may be old school adjusting to managing employees remotely, especially when it comes to measuring productivity? I'm really glad she asked this, because I thought you guys were going to ask me for my prediction, and I actually told my wife not an hour ago that I was done making predictions. So but this is good. So any advice for managers specifically, because we can talk to tech people and employees all day, but ultimately, the 3 of us have spent a lot of time talking to those that are managing, just the people managers, sometimes call them resource managers, which is awful. But I think I'll start off with keep a perspective, like Rick was saying about, what productivity actually is, and how that works, and recognizing that there are a lot of challenges for people that are, kind of forced into remote work, but there always have been. And we've dealt with this for, a good 15 to 20 years now, believe it or not.
But not at this scale.
No, but the average size of the home back in the 1960s, 1970s, when a lot of the homes in the East were all made, the average size was around 1,100 square feet of the house. I'm in a room that's 1,100 square feet right now, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
It's a different world the further west you go, but newer homes and things like that. So a lot of people that are really challenged, like you're saying, Jeff, it has to do a lot of times with physical limitations, with the stresses that does. And so it becomes adapting and realizing that it's not just about the work. It is about the stresses that the employees are going through. And so, having mandatory breaks is one of the things that I have tried to encourage people to do, is to say, look, make it so that it's not optional, that you're taking a break. You need to go outside. You need to get air. You need to do things that are and not just work. And if managers don't tell people to do that, sometimes I don't think that they realize that that's okay. So that's one thing. Very practical, I guess.
The biggest thing that I would say, and it starts from your perspective. You know, a lot of people, especially young managers, they come into the roles thinking supervisor, not manager, thinking I need to control and understand and make people do the things that they need to do. Whereas a manager is much more, you know, you're your employees' advocates. You're looking for things that are slowing them down, things that are causing them to not be successful. Removing those obstacles, creating opportunities for them to grow and expand and, you know, chase their passions and stuff. I think the people that are intellectually looking at a role from a more real manager point of view versus supervisor, you know, think, you know,
Yep.
McDonald's frontline supervisor kind of a point of view. I think that's going to be foundational. But for those people that are already looking at it, you know, the only thing I'd say in terms of measuring productivity is try and find a real measure. Try and find the business outcomes that your group is going after. You know, if you're managing a group of call center agents, you know, what's your metric? NPS? Is it, you know, number of cases supported and closed? You know, but go for it, try and track those versus using the old school metrics of, okay, were they in their desk at 8 o'clock on the nose? Do I need to give them a black mark because they showed up at 8:05 because of traffic? You know, that kind of crap.
Yeah. And when you're measuring productivity, I mean, it's that is so different across the board. Like you mentioned, help desk should be measured differently than, say, marketing, someone in marketing, someone in accounting, you know, those types of things. And managers, you know, really managers, executives, you know, those types of people need to realize we are not back to business as normal. So if you're thinking, and this is a potential, you know, if you're thinking that productivity is down, what about the rest of the business? You know, is the business down, you know, like revenue wise or whatever? I mean, and that, so, you know, I don't know that there's any accurate way right now to measure productivity, whatever that may mean to people. Because I'll be honest, most of the time they weren't measuring it before. It's gut feelings that they're going by, that I don't think my employees are as productive. And I think that's a problem. Now, you still do have micromanagers out there. I mean, we've heard the horror stories over the past year. Micromanagers that they want, you know, software on your desktop or laptop, or, you know, your Citrix workstation or whatever. You know, they want to know that you are typing, you know, whatever all the time. They, you know, and you're only taking 15-minute breaks. Those are the managers that most likely will not survive this transition.
Yep.
And again, I will state, we are still in that transition stage. We're a year in, but I truly believe we are still transitioning, just based on the number of companies and people that have had to adjust suddenly.
So here's my take on this. Again, without any predictions, because I promised no more of those, but here's the thing. You approach this from the problem, what if the problem was a lack of creativity without working from home? What if that was identified as the problem? What would that leader do about it? And I'm saying leader, not manager. There's a very, very big distinction here. You know, leaders are rarely managers, and managers are rarely leaders. In fact, I would almost say that leaders are never managers. Not truly. But if you're not willing to lead that part of the culture, like we were talking about earlier with the way Citrix kind of approached this, of making the culture of this. You know, if that wasn't part of the culture before, you can't just complain about it now that people are working from home, now that you've noticed a shift. The problem was never that people were more or less creative. The problem was always in those kind of situations that the culture was bad. And I know that sucks for companies to hear, and I don't care. You know, that is, in my mind, exactly what the problem is. Has nothing to do with, you know, employees or even working conditions. It has everything to do with the culture. I guess, yeah, I don't see any evidence out there. Let's put it this way. You know, Rick, you're talking about like Google and companies like that, and some of the tech companies and other companies I've worked in everything from, you know, aerospace to finance to hard industrial. You know, anytime I've seen a culture of creativity, it has had nothing to do with the people and has had everything to do with the leadership.
Cultures
I'd go with that. I think, because I mean, they are the ones that essentially dictate the culture and those types of things.
Yeah.
They are also, I think, the hardest ones to get to adjust.
Yeah. So I did the statement here that from what I'm hearing, it sounds like we'll see the wheat separated from the chaff
well
in this
put.
transition, and I positively agree with that. That's exactly what we're seeing here, is that there's a, and we've been seeing this for a year, and we'll continue seeing it, I think, too, if it doesn't, if things don't change culturally, we'll probably keep seeing that. You know, I'm not saying we will, I'm not saying we won't, but if things don't change, then that's a likely outcome here. And we're already seeing that with a lot of companies that are, you know, should be still in business from all, you know, measures, but aren't. And it's because they either were, you know, set in their ways and refused to pivot, or just didn't really have the right culture to adapt to this. You know, let me see if I have this saying still in my queue, because I say it often enough that I actually put a, yeah. As I say this daily, you will not rise to the occasion. You'll only rise to a level of preparedness. That's I say that every day, almost every time I'm live on any platform. I end up saying that because it's true. And as a company, it's absolutely true. If you're not already at a point of being able to handle a stress, you thinking that you're just gonna we'll just make it when we get there. Not so much. You know, like Rick, like you're saying, it's like that's not human nature. That's not how we're built. So, wow, cool stream.
I'm distractible. I'm totally distractible.
Oh yeah, that squirrel runs by us all.
That distractibility is what's kept me from being truly successful as a business person. So, you know, but it is a lot of fun though.
It's not easy. It's a lot of freaking blood, sweat, and tears, especially building your own business.
It really is, and that's something that is a very big thing about the business side of things. It's like you got to be made of something special, even to begin with, to try and do something like full time or whatever. But
thank you for the note, Lady of the Lake. I appreciate that. I appreciate that she's been willing to, assumedly she has been willing to throw some questions and stuff at us. Super cool.
She does. And
Twitch,
notice where she's coming in from Twitch, which is great. I think that's awesome. But yeah, she's been joining us now for quite a while, and she has been very interactive with guests and everything. Always asking good questions.
Right.
Always a pleasure.
You know, that's actually one of the most challenging things that this whole remote thing has done. Like giving a webinar where you can't see any of your audience and you don't know whether people are actually paying attention or not.
Yeah.
It's, you know what I mean? It's a total mind shift if you ever spent any time in front of audiences, which, you know, I still to this day find extremely fulfilling personally. But when you can't see an audience's face, you can't look them in the eyes. You can't read the nonverbal cues.
Mm-hmm.
You can't see if you've actually got a connection with them.
Yep.
It's quite a bit challenging.
Yep. And I think we can all attest to that. That's absolutely true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
So Omar wants to know about your other business ventures, like more details on those, because we touched on those very briefly, but we could just kind of reiterate, what it is, what you were doing, and what your role was in that. Like if you're a solopreneur or just something you built with other employees and sold it off, or what did that look like?
So my very first business, I guess, was probably technically was when I was still in college. Mm-hmm. When people first started paying me for applying my aptitude, my passion for technology to business problems. And that's kind of where I ended up going. So once I left Citrix, left Microsoft, went out and was finally like, all right, I'm in, let's do this. It's really time to throw down and build this business. It was a consulting business model that we picked up on. And I'll be honest, it was more of people knew me. I was a known quantity. I was pretty well connected, and ultimately when somebody hired me, I would do a good job. So word of mouth worked out very well for me. But it was like it was there. And I needed to get some revenue coming in pretty quickly. As an entrepreneur, I had never set out to build a consulting practice by desire, because it doesn't scale. So that's the one challenge. And it's not that it can never scale. There definitely, you look at, all the consolidation that's happened, just say in the Citrix reseller community. Obviously it can scale. You can sell in there, you can make some money out of it. But in terms of investing time and energy and effort into a business and getting a return, a consulting practice is kind of a bit of a lifestyle thing, right? If you're not there, the consulting practice ends up being you a lot.
Yeah.
Then if you're not feeding it, then you're not actually generating any revenue, which can catch up pretty quickly. So straight back to ventures. Right out of Microsoft, it was consulting practice. Did a lot of work with state and local government. That was my first introduction to a lot of a hell of a lot of business. I learned so much in that extravaganza. We built it up to, I think, at the end, after we had sold it, Vision App bought the company. Yeah. At one point, it became Vision App North America. I think we had somewhere around 10 or 12 employees when we bought the company back from Vision App and started the new company, Claros. We did that for 2 years. It was also a consulting business model. Yeah. I was very focused on multi-tenant systems. We know them as CSP types of platforms now. Ultimately, one of my customers ended up buying that business. Did that 2 years as a CTO, and then left. Did my little stint. I was talked by Chetan Venkatesh into taking a chance and rolling the dice with Atlantis. I rode that train. Got my scars and my learnings and such from that, which was weird. Okay, that was weird. That's the first job I've ever had where my technical aptitude had all but no impact on my ability to be successful in a role.
Yep. It
was all about my ability to build a team and to build a business and to empathize and understand and build culture, which was kind of crazy. But yeah, then I did that. So, the executive types of roles at medium-sized companies, I guess, smaller companies. And now back at Citrix in the last 4.5 years.
Yeah.
So I did this to Mike Nelson when he was on the other week. I still have paper of Vision.
Okay. I love it. I don't know if I have any swag.
Vision, I mean, that was such a great company. I mean, you know, Benny and the others that were part of that at the time. But the product, you know, that it was basically SCCM before, you know, I mean, I know the SMS and stuff was out there, but I mean, this was the first, you know, it really was a completely automated build and everything. I still remember it. That the big thing, yeah.
No, Benny is the reason why I even let that whole Vision app transaction happen. He's one of my heroes, absolute heroes, one of my best friends in the industry. Love that guy. But yeah, it was him and his role and his involvement in that company that tipped me over the edge and made me spend 2 years trying to be a CTO with development, all your developers and product managers. And test and support in Germany. Jed shared some of the challenges in the session that you did with him. Yes, Frank Roth.
Frank, yep.
Frank, yes. Frank was the guy that we did the deal with. He was ostensibly our handler for the next 2 years. Deal. But Jed had made a comment about the challenges of going to work for a German company and taking, you know, the speeds and feeds very German, not judging, you know, very German kind of.
It's their culture.
And trying to bring a product to North America and, you know, make it an internationally consumable product versus North American one. I can definitely empathize with those challenges. Man, trying to deal with and interact with a balance of gravity, if you will, of leadership and engineering and development work that was 9 hours ahead of you.
Yep.
Man, I spent a lot of time on airplanes, a lot of time over in Frankfurt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say this. I remember when I went over there to teach Brian Madden's master class over there. And when I was there, I mean, it was second to none, the hospitality by all of them. It was just, it was a great time.
Yeah. No, I had the opportunity to see Germany through the eyes of the locals, which is one of my favorite. I mean, if you take a look at any of the international travel that I've done, you know, seeing Germany through Benny and Tina's eyes, right. Frank's eyes, was absolutely amazing. Dennis Gundarev, man, that guy showed me Moscow. Been to Moscow 3 times, a couple times under his watch, and yeah, Bjorn Rubert and seeing Norway in his eyes, and seeing and experiencing his hometown of Vic. God dang, I've been so blessed to meet some absolutely freaking amazing people in this industry. We've got it's a cool community.
Amazing.
Yep.
And yeah,
we're here. We're a cool community. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
And that's the great thing, is that it is a very tight knit for as spread across the world as we are, and I mean, really, the various cultures that are involved in it. It's great that you know, we can all get along. It's a love commune now. Everybody hug, virtual hug, and everything. Yeah. Okay.
We ain't doing that. We're like,
come on, man.
Aww. Well, Rick, why don't we dive into kind of what you see? I mean, what's next for you? What's going on? What kind of things do you have going on at Citrix? You know, obviously there's not anything you can talk about, you know, confidentially, but big picture, what kind of things are next for you?
So when I joined, the challenge I rejoined Citrix for was the challenge of turning the corner. You know, Citrix at the time was facing an existential challenge of relevancy, moving from being an old school traditional enterprise software company to being relevant in the cloud world and the subscription services world. So that was really the big challenge that I signed up on for. And one of the guys that was really instrumental in helping me decide to take on that challenge was Christian Riley.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, another freaking hero of mine. So the role that I'm in right now has actually been really fulfilling, and I'm digging it because it allowed me to take a very different perspective and approach to getting things done. So, especially in the time when I was running my own business and I had to be out there, I had to be visible, I had to be marketing myself. So, it worked out well that I could do that all the while that I was actually making an impact for people, right? Sharing things, putting things together, sharing my knowledge and helping other people be successful. But I learned after probably about the first 6 months back at Citrix, I changed my strategy for making an impact a bit. Instead of leading with my own voice and my own face, it was actually a conversation with Jared Cower. I don't know if either of you guys know Jared.
Oh, of course.
He's now Citrix from way back when.
Mm-hmm.
And an assorted and interesting journey that he's been on. It was actually a conversation with Jared that helped me kind of solidify the strategy and put it into words. But that strategy is creating heroes.
Mm-hmm.
So I changed my approach to the way I do things and get things done at work, the way I create deliverables. And, I started to shift to creating opportunities for other people to, get their name in lights, to take on this webinar that was coming up that's a stretch for their skills. Give them an opportunity to get out in front of things. Enable people in the background to develop and publish some fantastic white papers. So that change in strategy has gotten me the personal fulfillment. Now, it hasn't kept me in touch with my friends, which that part's been a bit of a bitch, I got to admit. I've been gritting my teeth a little bit. I haven't been able to stay as connected to our community and my friends. But I think near term, I'm not looking for any reason to make a change from where I'm at. They pay me well. I'm respected in my role. I'm doing things that make a difference. I'm making a difference for people. I'm having an influence on the whole next generation of technologists that are coming up inside and to a certain extent outside. I'm having an impact and pulling some levers and pushing some buttons in the background and seeing much bigger things like this whole Google Citrix relationship really starting to blossom. I will tell you, I'm less driven by money than I was in the past. I'm less driven by a need to be known and to be famous and, to have people say, "Ooh, it's Rick. Hi, Rick." I don't have that need. Not that I think I really ever innately needed that, but it was always kind of cool when people would come up and give you some props.
Yeah.
So at this point, honestly, I cannot complain about where I'm at or what I'm doing. Now, do I want to be in tech the rest of my life? No, I will tell you that. I have had dreams of stepping out of the technology world and finding another parallel industry, like snowboarding or, adventure tours or backcountry touring or something along those lines, some completely not technology related industry where I can bring technology into it and leverage my passion, my knowledge, my understanding of how technology works to revolutionize that industry and do some cool and special, unique stuff, impactful stuff out of technology. So I'd say that's probably a pipe dream next step down the road for me. But yeah, right now I've got a job. I've got my health. I've got a healthy family. And I'm living in a fantastic place that's allowing me to keep my sanity as well as my health.
Right.
So I really honestly, I don't have a hell of a lot to complain about. other than I want to see more of my friends. Damn it. I am a
if you
social
think of-
animal. I miss you
Yeah.
guys.
Right. Well, there's an episode of Citrix Coach in a Car Getting Coffee that I did 2 years ago, I think now. And I was talking about this. A lot of people think they're introverts that are actually extroverts. You know, there's a switch. And I think this has actually been switching that on for people that are like, gosh, I thought I was so shy and whatnot. I thought I was an introvert. It turns out that I really need to be around people. You know, it's a thing. For sure.
Yeah.
So at Northern California Cat Wranglers, write that down. That's your next business idea right there.
Well, and if worse comes to worse, Rick, Ron Oglesby will be opening a Jiffy Lube when he retires. So, we're some of us are planning on just going over there and changing oil for a living.
We've got our the plan. The plan is in motion.
Boss. I see Ron doing that. Sitting down there, spitting in his oil receptacle.
He wants to be under there, man. He wants to be in the pit. That's where he wants to be.
Yeah, honestly.
I can totally respect that.
It's good
so
yeah. Good.
You had mentioned, DJ, introvert versus extrovert. How do you define those, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, this is where my my psychology comes in a little bit here. Oh,
that's right.
Yeah. So actually, I have a degree in psychology, and I actually got kind of hand slapped when I was in my experimental psychology class because I was going to do a paper on the Myers-Briggs, and my professor, sternly told me that is not a personality test, and he didn't even want to call it an indicator. He's like, this is not how this works. And so I dug into it more, and it turns out that when it comes to introvert versus extrovert, it's more of a sense of how you replenish your energy. And so an introvert is naturally replenished when they are not around people. An extrovert is naturally replenished when they are around other people. And it's not good or bad to either one. It's just a wiring thing. Now, I call myself a mixtrovert because I go both ways. I actually I swing every which way, as the saying. You had to go there. You had to.
Your listeners are not going to catch that one so much.
We didn't say anything, DJ.
I love that movie. But
you're kind of a chameleon. You adapt to the situation as needed.
That's exactly it. But you recognize when you need to switch your behavior. And I think it was actually at a Citrix Synergy, I don't know how many years ago, that I noticed this about myself. It's like, wow, I really thrive around a lot of people, but I got to get back to my hotel room right now. It was like, I need me time right now, and you realize that there are thresholds both ways. But for me, I lean a little bit more towards the extrovert side a lot of the time. But I can things like this help for me. I still get a small charge back out of this. So, yeah.
So I suppose, coming from the guy who, actually studied this and got a degree in psychology, and I was actually stoked to hear your definition because it very, very closely parallels mine. But a lot of people don't, they may think of themselves as an introvert or an extrovert. But I actually had a ridiculously long and deep conversation with Brian, with Madden, about this one night. And we were talking about how, the one definition to me is if you ever find yourself in a position to deliver a session at a Briforum, at a Synergy, or something along those lines, when you walk off the stage, are you stoked and energized? Are you lit up? Mm-hmm. Or are you wiped out and you got to recover?
Mm.
You just mentioned that you're wiped out. You got to take your time. You got to go back and recover a little bit, which to me would say introvert.
It's kind of weird because
Yeah.
there's a degree there. There's a degree of yes and no. Public speaking is a whole different matter. It's not necessarily that's a push, not a take, right? And so it's you are putting yourself out there, which it exhausts everyone to some degree. It's probably just whether like you're talking about whether or not you immediately want to go back to your hotel room, and a lot of people do, especially in technology. If they just want to get away from people right away, like they can't wait to get out of there, they'll just duck out. And then there's others like myself that are like, yeah, I just did a talk, yeah, cool, all right, let's hang out for a couple hours and chat.
Well, and I think part of it too is how did the audience react? Do you feel you had the audience?
Mm-hmm.
Were they talking to each other and not even listening to you? I mean, that, oh God, I got to get through the next 25 minutes of this and nobody gives a beep. That's going to be exhausting.
I try to be as unanimated and boring as possible to make sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But there are just times where, something's wrong. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
Well, that's kind of funny that we were actually some of the first to jump into this realm of tech people who were also doing these kind of presentations and things like that. That's why I'm really excited about launching this course in the next month or so, teaching all that kind of stuff, like how to present, because it's something that, like, okay, yeah, we had to learn this. A couple of us did, and it's like, now what? It's like, are we passing this along, or is this going to die off? That sort of thing. So, but that difference of us getting it and being willing to share with each other, and then that just getting to bigger and bigger stages from that point is, when you think about it, kind of unique. It didn't happen in all the industries. It's not like that's big in finance, and it's not like it's big in some other technology areas, but specifically in end user computing, the community engaged more deeply, more rapidly in those areas than any other industry I've seen that's like it. It's fascinating.
That's pretty cool.
You sure you don't want to do the group hug now?
Say what now?
You sure you don't want to do the group hug now? Come on. You let into it.
You got an endorsement for the Northern California cat wrangling, so.
Just don't call me a cat guy, please. Please don't do that. My girlfriend uses me with that. I can't believe I'm seeing a cat guy. Like, no.
You got to have double-digit cats at least to be known for that.
Thank you. I was a little bit worried there. She's getting in my head. Oh, Lord.
There you go.
NorCal covered. Well, now I have to jump up a little north, back to the old homeland to cover NorCal.
Yeah, one more question, and we'll call it. Knox says, I'm 24 years old and I've been working in corporate for around 2 years. Feel like I'm going through burnout. Feels like I'm constantly running out of time to do the things that I actually want to do. I've been told by coworkers who are twice my age it is way too early to feel that way in my career. What do you guys think? I think they're right.
I don't think so. I mean, if I guess it starts with, are you happy? Are you happy doing what you're doing? Because that's what's causing the burnout.
Right.
But I don't think it's too early for something like that. We all go through that at various stages of our career.
It's so, in my mind, I mentioned Christian Riley as one of my all-time IT heroes earlier. Christian Riley responded to a tweet one time. Someone was asking him, how in the hell do you do what you do? Because, the guy, while he was at Citrix anyway, was a friggin' traveling fool.
Yeah.
He was around in front of so many damn customers and so many airports, and still managed to be a friggin' fantastic father, to raise a family. Somebody asked him, how the hell do you do everything that you do? His response was, a body in motion stays in motion. And that is so stuck with me. So, you know, to the point in looking at Knox's comment there, it resonates quite a bit with me because actually it wasn't quite around that age. I think at that age, let's see. Okay, yeah, I had started my quote unquote real job by then, but it's finding a balance. So like if when you put so much energy into a career, a learning, into a relationship, into building a family, you got to have a way to replenish your energy. And if you don't nurture your way of replacing your energy, just like you nurture your outlet for your energy, you know, again, be it work or relationships or a sport or whatever. If you're hitting burnout already, I would say look at the balancing side of that. You're probably missing whatever that activity is that gives energy back to you. Like for me right now, it's these mountains up behind my house.
Yeah.
I start to feel wound up. I start to trip out. I start to feel like, you know, the world is freaking the hell out and how are we ever going to come out? You lose hope. I get out, I get into the mountains, and the mountains to me, combining the energy of the mountains with the physical activity of motion in the mountains and that whole experience, that's what balances me out. So my question for Knox would be, what's your balance, man? What do you do that feeds your energy?
And I think to go along, sorry, you finish up.
Oh, okay. So to finish that, and actually this connection just came to me. A big part of how I've replenished my energy over the years has actually been through the community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So a lot of the work, and man, I can't tell you how many friggin' hours I put into doing shit that nobody ever noticed,
Mm-hmm.
or they finally did years later or whatever. But all that work and all the time and stuff that I put into the community, it's interactions like, I mean, quite frankly, like we're having here today. It's getting time, you know, back in the day at the CTP meetings when we'd get together and we'd have our CTP meetings and I get to see everybody and we'd all be focused and brainstorming and thinking and listening. And that was how I got the energy back out, was by putting the energy into the community and sharing my knowledge and trying to help people. So heck, Knox, maybe that's your balancing piece that you're missing. But I would say there probably is a balance there, because if you got the aptitude, you got the drive, you're willing to work,
mm-hmm.
you know, you're not one of those people that just wants to sit down on their butt.
Well, and I think there's also, you know, at 24, I think back to myself at that age. And I think this is still very much out there, is that you feel you have to be constantly proving yourself, or, you know, doing the extra stuff, you know, to prove that you're whatever part of the team that you're willing to do, you're willing to play, or, you know, whatever. It's, I think there's that mentality in being in the business world that, you know, hey, I'm fresh, I'm new. These guys have been doing it for, you know, 10, 15, 20 years. I got to prove myself
Mm-hmm.
to them. And you end up, to go along with Rick, you end up expending so much energy and you don't give yourself that time to replenish it. You know, that's probably, I think we can all agree, one of the biggest lessons we've all learned is you have to take time for yourself.
Absolutely.
And it's very hard when you're younger. I remember that well, but you have to, and you have to get back your balance. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would never say that I've been good about finding that balance, the whole work-life balance.
Right.
Dude, that's been a pursuit that I've been challenged with, and I've been fighting and I've been chasing forever. And I can tell you I'm doing the best right now than I ever have been in my life or my career. And I will tell you that I feel some guilt about it. I feel guilty at times when I'm looking at this laundry list of crap that I've got to get done and people that are expecting things of me. And I get to the point where I'm just like, I'm out. I gotta go. I'm useless right here if I don't invest in myself and get out. And for me, that investment is getting out and moving, riding a bike, walking, hiking, whatever. But that balance, man, it's an ongoing problem, especially raising a family and stuff, where you've got other people. It's a bit easier for me now that, I'm not managing any other people. I don't have a family at home. I'm still very active as much as I can in my kids' lives and stuff. So my world's a hell of a lot simpler now than it was when I rejoined Citrix 4.5 years ago, or, in the 5 years before that. But yeah, man, find your source of energy, tap into it regularly. And the more you can stay in motion, the more you can feed the energy in and give it out, it totally builds on itself.
Yeah, I think too, the thing to consider is the sense of time, and this is something that a lot of companies that are very performance oriented, like you're saying, it's very work oriented, that's the kind of the culture there. A lot of times the viewpoint of time is a little skewed. And this is something that I believe that the time is not as out of our control as we think. In fact, I believe that we've literally been created with the ability to control time in terms of what time feels like to us and what we do with that time. And so if our mindset is always that there's too much to do or there's not enough time, then that becomes our reality. What we so thinketh man, right? That's the way this works. So the first thing I'll say is get out of the notion of time being something that you can't control, because it absolutely is. And you always have all the time you need to do what you need to do. And if that's not true, then it's a totally different problem at that point. And it's usually kind of cultural, and it's hard to shape that. But I want to show you something. If I can figure this out, I'm going to try this. This is dangerous to do live, but we're going to try it, right? Because that's what we do around here. We take risks. We take the big risks, right? All right. So there's the whiteboard, right? All right. So here's what I want you to do, Knox. And this is kind of both life advice and career advice in one. So create a quadrant system here, and just have 4 quadrants. And in this bottom corner here, I want you to put the general tasks. I could care less about.
Changing cat boxes?
Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah, things that really are not giving you any kind of passion, not fulfilling you in any way. Now, also say with this, these are also things I'm not good at. These are things that are in an area we call incompetence. So you want to list out all the things you do in your day and your week, all the kind of things that fall into that category, and put those there. Next, you want to take all the things that you are good enough at doing, that are fun enough, and that are tolerable. Yeah, these are things, and the things that you can do well enough. This is your zone of competence. This other zone up here, and I'm going to take the camera around a little bit here, see if this works, so I can actually do this. This zone up here, what we're going to do with this is we're going to take all the things that you are, and this is often where you're paid to do these kind of things, but these are the things that people know me for. The things that you enjoy enough, but someone else could do them. This is your zone of excellence. Now you'll notice there's another zone here, and now most people would stop at excellence. This is where a lot of people in their professional careers kind of just stop. But what we want to do is leap into this other zone here, and these are the things that that only you can do. So only I can do. Trying to write sideways is kind of a challenge.
Trying to write without
uniquely.
I knew a guy, he was an insurance salesman. He could write upside down perfectly.
Yeah. So these are things you're uniquely qualified to do, that you feel a sense of calling to do. This is the zone of genius. So when it comes to managing time, what this tells me is usually if your day is dragging on and you've got this sense that it's never ending and there's never enough time in the day to do the tasks you're doing, usually it indicates that these are tasks that are in one of these two zones here. Very often we have to admit that they are things that I probably shouldn't be doing, that there's things that other people are qualified and passionate to do, perhaps even uniquely qualified to do. So if you're doing tasks in either of these areas, that's usually a sign of trouble. If you're doing things that are in a zone of excellence, and again, just at a point of being, 5-6 years into your career, this is not unusual at all to be in these lower areas at all. That's not a bad thing. But what you want to strive for is to say, okay, if this is where I'm getting paid, how can I either do more of this and less of these, or do more of this and as none of these as possible? And that's really where to get to that point where it doesn't feel like you're burning out all the time, because what burnout is a sense that you are not fulfilled in the work you're doing. And so if you can't find a way to make that context shift, then that's what's damaging. I'm going to take back the camera to me here. Try. So Knox, the thing that you want to look at here is, how can I make a context shift? And I'll tell you that the show you're looking at right now is the result of a context shift. And this is me saying that, I can be a consultant and I'm pretty darn good at it. But the reality is that it wasn't my zone of genius. I realized that, what? Other people can be consultants. Other people can probably do it just as well, or if not better than I can. So what can I do that's unique? Well, I figured out there's a couple things. One, I can train people to do what I'm doing. I can lift them up. I can write books and create courses and things like that, or talk to people and bring their stories forward and bring everybody up. These are things that I feel uniquely qualified to do. So what I've done is taken what I do and shifted the way I do it so that it's enabling more of my zone of genius to come out. And the funny thing about that is, the more I do that, the less I feel like I'm working. The less I feel like the time is just, a slog, and yet at the same time, it's just like the day is always over too soon. The more of those things I do in my zone of genius, the more I don't worry so much about that. And so to me, that's the thing I would say. So kind of cool to get these unexpected questions, but I love it. That's why we're here.
Dude, I feel like I should be writing you a check for therapy right now. That was, and no, I don't mean that.
Therapy is coaching, and it is something that I do.
I said that may be funny. I admit it. But no, point is, I like the way that you broke that down. I think that was pretty cool. Shifting and the whole, I love tools like that. I love tools like that. And being willing to continue to learn and to grow. I think that's probably one of the other things that has been a foundation of my career and my life, is just having the passion for learning. That was one of the things I tried so hard to instill in my kids is, regardless of what your path is, be humble, keep your mind open, be willing to learn and evolve and to change.
Yeah, and just remember your career is what you make it. Yeah,
that was great. And the fact that you could just pull that square, that diagram out of your butt and recreate it on the camera right there, that was pretty kick-ass.
And that's living in my zone of genius. That's me recognizing that, I didn't invent that concept. That came from a guy named Gay Hendricks, who wrote a book called The Big Leap. But that's in me, practicing, and doing this with people and walking people through that exercise in my coaching. That's where that comes from. So it's not just like magic,
It was good stuff. It was definitely good stuff, man.
Awesome. Well, it's been an hour and 45 minutes. Can you believe that? This happens with us sometimes. We go way longer than we intended to, but that's the fun of all this.
But it's fun when we do.
Yeah. We love that you've all stuck with us. Thank you for tuning in on YouTube and Facebook and Twitch. We appreciate it. But let's do some final thoughts here. So, Rick, final thoughts from today, or anything you want to say in parting?
Wow. In parting? Like trying to think, bringing it back around to a topic. And I mean, if our topic is survival and success and thriving in the IT space, if I was to try and boil down any kind of core words of wisdom, I'd say find those things that you're passionate about, those activities that give you energy to do them. And if you can find an activity that you can do that gives you energy that people pay you for, that's the freaking money zone right there.
Yep.
And it sounds like our buddy Knox is in that spot right now, where all of his energy is going into the shit that people are paying him for, but it's not energy. It's not giving him anything back. So if you can find that space, and I would search it, look for it, do some deep dive searching and analysis and understanding of yourself to try and figure out what that is and be honest with yourself. And if you can find that place where you live, where your work is driving your energy and you're passionate about what you do, then, it's freaking cakewalk from there. That never stop being a part of the community, getting out there, sharing your thoughts, being open to what you get back out of other people. Because there's always somebody smarter than you out there. Yep. In one topic or another. You're never always the smartest person there is. Unless you're on TV and your name is Sheldon, then, maybe. Sorry.
I'm a genius. I'm not a genius, but I play one on TV, so.
There you
go.
Cool. Right on. Rick, thank you so much for being with us. It was a joy to reconnect and to have you with us. And yeah. So.
Yeah. Cheers, guys. Thank you very much. And thanks a lot to Knox and Lady of the Lake and our other folks that were interacting with us. It definitely makes it so much fun as we go along.
Absolutely. Yep. Well, Rick, we'll kick you back to the green room and let you have a drink, and then you and I will chat afterwards here. So thanks for being on again. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
All right, Jeff.
My turn. All right. I don't have any final thoughts, but I do want to show this off. It has to be shown. This is my Beskar helmet. You know, my oldest got that for me for Christmas, custom made. It's got lining and everything on the inside. It is an absolute gorgeous, gorgeous helmet. That's my final thought. Been wanting to show that for a couple of weeks.
I've been waiting for you to actually, actually do that. So,
hey, well, I guess you can't really see, but if you could see like my wall here, this is Joker wall, basically. Over there is all my Warcraft, Diablo, all that good stuff. So, yeah.
It just occurred to me we're gonna have to do like a Diablo debrief. Maybe that's We'll have to do a special episode and talk through that because I need to still watch everything. But maybe we could do that.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Yeah. Thank you for joining.
Cheers. All right. Kick you back to the green room. All right. So yeah, thank you once again for being with us. Just a few final things, a few final thoughts that I've had here. First off, though, make sure that you definitely get and Jeff's still seeing your comments. So yeah, so it's all good. So a couple things. One, make sure you get subscribed to our YouTube channel. We've got some things that are coming up, some of which will be only YouTube. But next week, we're going to have the one and only Mark Templeton on our show. And so that is going to be a fantastic interview. That'll be Thursday at, I believe, 5 o'clock Central Time. Let me confirm that real quick. Yes, Thursday, the 4th of March at 5 Central Time. So make sure you're there for that. We'd love to have you live with us for that. So mark your calendars. We'll also be on LinkedIn with that. But that's really important. And then also, got to pay the bills. And so we are our own sponsor around here. So I just want to say that, a lot of the wisdom I've learned over the years, I decided to put into a book. That book is available to you. So if you go to thrive-it.com/justdothis, that's thrive-it.com/justdothis, enter the coupon code ThriveCast at checkout. Not only is it going to get a discount, but I will also personalize the book and send it to you. So let me know if you want me to make it out to you or somebody else. Let me know on that, and I will send that out to you. But this book has, basically I distilled down a good 20 years of experience and a good 10 plus years of IT consulting experience, and said, okay, what are the lessons I could pass on and do so in a way that won't be completely overwhelming, so it's not a huge book. But it is very well distilled down. It's basically the book that I wish I would have had when I started doing IT work. And so if you are in information technology, it doesn't matter what branch of IT you're in, that's the book that I wrote for you. So go get it. thrive-it.com/justdothis, enter coupon code ThriveCast so that we know you heard about it here. And we look forward to serving you on another episode very, very soon. In fact, serving you greatly, talking about leaving the world better than you found it with Mark Templeton next week. So I hope you have a blessed day, and have a great one. That's all I can say about that. Have a great, great, great day. Cheers, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another edition of Thrivecast. We truly hope you've enjoyed the experience and have learned a lot from it. Now, what we'd want from you next is to join us at thrive-it.com, where you can get subscribed to our multiple channels, get subscribed to our newsletter, and do more to get yourself to where you want to be in your career and your life in information technology. If there's anything we can do to help you, please give us an email at support@thrive-it.com.